Boop, 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 boop. Time to play the theme song. Do, 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 do. Ba, 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 ba. That's all I have written so far. Come on in here. Come on in. I love you too. You love my yoy? Hello, Australia or Austin? I can't tell. Good morning. I'm tired because I stayed up late to watch Game of Thrones. I never know what's going on in Game of Thrones. It's the only TV show I can watch where I don't know anything that's going on. Like none of it really makes sense to me, but all the scenes are still good, so I don't really care. All right, let's talk about how confident our intelligence services are in the idea that Russia interfered with our elections. I saw a quote that caught my attention yesterday. I blogged about this, by the way, so it's on my blog. That Mike Pompeo, director of the CIA, last week said he was, quote, confident that the Russians interfered with our election, or at least attempted. Nobody is judging how effective it was. Now, let me ask you this. When was the last time you knew something to be true, you just knew it to be true, and the way you spoke about it was, I am confident it's true? Is that the way you talk when you know something's true? Do you say you're confident something is true? I've never used that language. Yeah. So, I don't want to make too much of this, but once again, here we have a weird situation where we're being asked to trust the credibility of these 17 intel agencies. Now, let me give you a little insight that many people don't have. Many observers of the world, of this situation in particular, have never worked in a big company. And if you've worked in a big company or in the government, you have a different perspective than those who don't. If you're young and dumb and you've never worked for the government or a big company, and you hear the following, 17 intelligence agencies agree, we're confident Russia interfered in the election. Now, if you have no experience in the real world, what do you say? You say, well, 17 intel agencies, that's obviously true. These are the most credible people. I mean, if even one of them had disagreed, well, maybe that would be something to talk about. But all 17 on the same side? Come on, that's as close to certain as you could be, right? Well, then it turned out it wasn't all 17. It was more like 3 or 4. And nobody's arguing this anymore, right? Now it's down from 17 said it to, well, 3 or 4 said it. Turns out it was 3, somebody's saying. That's probably true. I haven't heard whether it's 3 or 4. But let me explain to you in the real world what it means to say 3 or 4 intelligence agencies agree. And everyone who's ever worked for a big company already knows where I'm going. But if you've not had any experience with a big company, this would be sort of unusual and surprising to you, probably. And here's how it works. The way you get 3 or 4 intel agencies to agree is you have one of them come up with an opinion and say to the other people, hey, we got an opinion, we're pretty sure this is what we looked at. And then the other 3 say, okay, sounds good to us. We're convinced. We believe you. Do you think that all 3 or 4 of those government intel agencies, do you think that they all did their own independent research to find out what their conclusion was? Maybe. It's possible. But I think the odds of that are really, really small, because that's not the way the world works. The way the world works is the people whose job it is to do that, do it, and the people whose job it is not, do not do it. And it's not all of their jobs. It was probably one agency's job, and that agency probably wasn't sharing everything, right? So the other agencies had to say, well, okay, we heard your argument and we're in the same business, so we're going to treat you with respect and credibility, just the way we'd like to be treated. But the other agencies probably haven't seen it. So I take the following information. They started with, hey, 17 agree, then it turned to 3 or 4 agree. But really, if you've ever lived, worked, or been around the real world, you know what that means. It means probably, we don't know, but probably one agency came up with a conclusion, and 3 or 4 said, yeah, we looked at the summary, you guys are smart, we trust you. So my guess is it's probably one agency. Now, then I heard, as I mentioned earlier, CIA Director Mike Pompeo referring to their conclusion as confident. We are confident. Something you don't say when you're sure. So what happens if it's only one agency and they're not sure? They're just confident. Do you know what else would make you confident? Being wrong. That's another thing that makes you confident that you're right. Being wrong. Do you know what they feel like? Same fucking thing. That's what confirmation bias is. Do you know how confident the intelligence agencies were that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? They didn't say we know. I think they probably said they were confident. Confident is what you say when you don't know. And then, but still, I was leaning toward, well, even if there's one agency that says they're confident, it probably means they have secret ways to look at stuff, and they really can't tell us all the things they did to figure this out. But then I saw a quote from, it was an article in Business Insider, in which Scaramucci was saying that he had just talked to the president, like, yesterday or the day before, and the president said that he didn't know if the Russians did it. Now, think about that. You and I don't know if the Russians did it because the intelligence agencies can't tell us, they're not allowed to tell us how they know it, right? Because that would be too much for us to know. But the President of the United States is allowed to know. They work for him. So he could just say, well, you say you're confident. What is the basis for this confidence? And they would either say, well, here's our evidence, and this type of evidence is always right. Or here's our evidence, and this type of evidence is really, really, good chances it's right. All right? Which one of those did they say to the president? Because it didn't sound like they said we know. It sounds like we're just pretty sure. And do you know what being pretty sure feels like? It feels like exactly like being wrong. There's no frickin' difference because there's no scientific basis by which to judge confidence. You could take two people, one was totally right, one was totally wrong, and judge their confidence and how right they were. Guess what? It's a tie. They're both just as confident. So all morning long, I'm getting abuse online from the people who are saying some version of this. It's definitely true. It's 100% true. And these are not intelligence agencies. These are just people on Twitter. So how dumb do you have to be to conclude that because somebody in the government says something's true, oh, and by the way, the people who say it's true, they lie for a living. They're actually trained liars. That's what they do. They're like the best experts at lying in the world are the only source we have for our information. And we've seen sources like this being wrong all the time. It's a fairly common thing to be wrong. And so, I asked myself, if you wanted to take down a political campaign, let's say the Trump campaign, and you needed to wiretap them and you needed some legal basis to do that, wouldn't it really help if some intelligence agencies said, yeah, we're confident that there's some Russian involvement? That would get you your search warrants, right? Yeah, Sam Harris believes them. So here's the thing. Here's what well, let me give you an example of what a rational thinker would say versus an irrational thinker. Given that you and I are not in these intelligence agencies, we can't see the work that they did. They're not allowed to show us how they came up with their conclusion. We have nothing but the word of people who are leakers and professional liars. Right? Let me say that again. We're relying entirely upon the word of people who are leakers, often wrong, because we know that from history. They're leakers who are professional liars who have a history of often being wrong. And the people who are listening to the leaker liars with a history of often being wrong say, my God, you idiots, can't you see that it's proven now, it's guaranteed, it's 100% true? Well, my view on this is it may well be true. In fact, I would say there's probably more chance it's true than not true. But anybody who looks at that and says it is true doesn't really understand anything about how the world works. These are the sorts of things which by their nature are not definitely true or not. I mean, we may someday find out something is definitely true or not. But at the moment, the public has no information by which the public could make a determination of whether it's likely or unlikely that this is true. We really don't have any information, but the certainty of the people on Twitter who are coming after me is kind of funny. They could show something without revealing methods. Yeah, you don't really know. They could, maybe, but maybe not. What was Trump's latest tweet? Oh, I said I had a freaky day a while ago? Yeah, I can't tell you that. It's gotten even freakier. You call Adam Schiff sleazy. You know what's great about... yeah. So how many of you know what Adam Schiff looks like? So he called Adam Schiff sleazy. I'm going to call up a picture of Adam Schiff. Adam, S-C-H-I-F-F. Let's call up a picture of him and see if he looks sleazy or not. All right. Can you see on my computer? No, that won't work. I got to take the device off and point it at the... Yeah. All right. So there's Adam Schiff. Here's some more pictures of him. But the funny thing is that when you hear him talk and you look at him, sleazy actually kind of fits, because you remember the big trick for Trump's nicknames is that they match the person's physicality. There's something about them that you look at them and you say, man, that fits. And and just the fact that his name is Schiff, because it sounds shifty. And then sleazy, just sleazy Schiff. I don't know. This might be A/B testing. Shifty. His head would look good on a copper snake. All right, you're being evil. Why did they? All right, you're all terrible. Any comment on the word beleaguered? From what context? I haven't seen beleaguered used yet. the filing of impeachment? Has that happened? I'm not really worried about that stuff yet. All right. That's all I had today. Apparently that wasn't much. Slow news day. If anybody wants me to run for the director of the FBI, I'll do it. All right. Trump called Sessions beleaguered. That's not a good sign, is it? Beleaguered. All right. Gotta go. Remember, don't win small when you can win bigly.